What happens when a community emerging from the deserts of Arabia begins to shape the destiny of continents? What happens when a generation carries faith, determination, discipline, and a vision powerful enough to cross mountains, deserts, and seas? The story of the Umayyad Caliphate is not simply the story of a dynasty rising to power. It is a powerful chapter in the long journey of Islamic civilization, filled with ambition, struggle, achievement, uncertainty, and lessons about leadership. After the period of the rightly guided caliphs, the Muslim world entered a difficult era of political division and conflict. Out of this turbulent atmosphere emerged Muawiya ibn Abi Sufyan, a leader known for his political ability, patience, and administrative experience. In 661 CE, after years of conflict, Muawiya established himself as caliph, beginning the Umayyad dynasty from Damascus. His rise marked a major transformation in the political structure of the Muslim world, as Damascus became the center of an empire that would eventually stretch across an extraordinary portion of the known world. Yet behind every great empire lies a human story of challenge and responsibility. The Umayyads inherited territories that were vast, diverse, and difficult to govern. Different languages, cultures, traditions, and communities existed across these lands, creating enormous responsibilities for the rulers. Their success depended not only on military strength, but also on organization, communication, taxation, roads, administration, and the ability to maintain authority across enormous distances. The early Umayyad period, therefore, teaches an important lesson about progress. Greatness is rarely created overnight. It is built through countless decisions, careful planning, endurance, and a willingness to continue moving forward when circumstances become difficult. As the Umayyad state became more organized, its influence expanded. Armies moved into North Africa, Central Asia, and the Iberian Peninsula, while Muslim rule reached regions that had previously been separated by enormous geographical and political barriers. This expansion was not merely a movement of armies. It also created new connections between peoples, cities, markets, scholars, and cultures. Under the Umayyads, Damascus developed into a major political and cultural center, while monumental architecture reflected the confidence and resources of the growing state. The Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, completed under Abd al-Malik, became one of the most recognizable monuments of early Islamic civilization. But beneath this impressive expansion, another question was quietly growing. Could such a vast empire remain united while political tensions, regional differences, and competing claims to authority continue to rise? The answer would determine the future of the dynasty. Their journey also reveals that historical power carries a price. Because expansion creates expectations, leadership creates responsibility, and success can create new pressures that are often invisible to those watching from a distance. The future would test whether strength alone could preserve unity through generations and change. For now, however, the Umayyads stood at the beginning of an extraordinary chapter, and their story reminds us that every great achievement begins with a difficult decision, a clear purpose, and the courage to take the first step. As the Umayyad Caliphate entered its most powerful period, the map of the Muslim world changed with speed. Under capable rulers, especially Abd al-Malik and his successors, the administration became more centralized, Arabic became the language of government, and reforms strengthened communication and financial organization. These developments were not merely signs of ambition. They demonstrated how a growing civilization could transform itself through knowledge, discipline, and systematic leadership. Coins were standardized, official records were organized, and construction projects displayed the confidence of the state. Across provinces, governors worked to maintain order while armies defended and expanded the empire's frontiers. From North Africa, Muslim forces eventually crossed into the Iberian Peninsula in 711. Opening a chapter in Islamic history. Cities, cultures, and ideas became connected across regions that had once seemed impossibly distant. Yet the greater the empire became, the greater the pressure placed upon its rulers. Distance created communication problems, local rivalries challenged central authority, and disagreements continued to influence the stability of the state. Behind magnificent buildings and victorious campaigns, uncertainty was slowly developing. The empire appeared stronger than ever, but beneath the surface, questions about justice, succession, loyalty, taxation, and legitimacy were becoming increasingly important. This is where the story takes a dramatic turn, because history often becomes most dangerous when a powerful civilization believes that its challenges have already been conquered. Different groups within the Muslim world carried different expectations about leadership and governance, while dissatisfaction could grow whenever communities believed that their interests were being ignored. Some opposition movements gained strength, and the rulers faced the difficult task of balancing authority with the demands ignored. Some opposition movements gained strength, and the rulers faced the difficult task of balancing authority with the demands of a diverse population. Meanwhile, the frontiers continued to require resources and military attention. Every victory created another responsibility, and every province required administration, soldiers, communication, and financial support. The Umayyad experience, therefore, offers a timeless lesson about success. Reaching the summit is not the end of the journey. Maintaining that position can be far more difficult than achieving it. An empire can possess wealth, territory, armies, and magnificent monuments, yet still become vulnerable when internal unity begins to weaken. The suspense surrounding the Umayyad story deepened as opposition movements became more organized and tension spread. The dynasty that had once appeared firmly established now faced challenges that could not be solved by expanding its borders. The final decades became a struggle to preserve authority while responding to powerful forces within society. Eventually, the Abbasid movement gathered enough support to challenge Umayyad rule directly, and in 750 CE, the Umayyad Caliphate in Damascus collapsed. The fall was sudden compared with the extraordinary scale of its achievements, reminding every generation that no political power remains permanent. Yet the story did not truly end with defeat. One Umayyad prince, Abd al-Rahman, escaped westward and eventually established Umayyad rule in Al-Andalus, proving that the legacy of a civilization can survive even when its center disappears. This continuation shows that determination can carry a vision beyond the ruins of one chapter and into another. The fall of the Umayyad Caliphate in Damascus did not erase the achievements, lessons, and legacy of the dynasty. Instead, it opened another chapter in the story of Islamic civilization. Abd al-Rahman I established Umayyad rule in Al-Andalus, where the dynasty survived for generations and produced a flourishing center of learning, architecture, science, agriculture, and culture in Córdoba. The memory of the earlier empire continued to influence political and cultural development, while cities across the Muslim world remained connected through trade, scholarship, travel, and traditions. The Umayyad story therefore reaches far beyond battles and rulers. It teaches that civilizations are built by people who organize their communities, preserve knowledge, develop institutions, and continue working toward a future larger than themselves. At the same time, history warns that power without responsibility can create instability, and expansion without unity can produce weaknesses that eventually become impossible to ignore. The Umayyads achieved remarkable territorial expansion, but their experience also demonstrated that governing a diverse and enormous realm requires justice, patience, communication, and wise leadership. Their successes remind us that ambitious goals become possible when vision is supported by discipline and consistent effort. Their decline reminds us that achievements must be protected through humility, accountability, and unity. This is one of the most meaningful lessons for anyone studying Islamic history today. The rise and fall of the Umayyads shows that every generation inherits both opportunities and responsibilities. Greatness is not simply measured by how much territory is controlled or how impressive a monument appears. It is also measured by the knowledge preserved, institutions created, communities strengthened, and values carried forward. From Damascus to Jerusalem, from North Africa to Iberia, the Umayyad period left marks that continued to shape later centuries. The Dome of the Rock, administrative reforms, the development of Arabic governmental systems, and the expansion of intellectual and commercial connections all became parts of a historical inheritance. Yet the greatest inheritance may be the lesson that no era remains unchanged. Empires rise, transform, struggle, and eventually disappear, but the ideas, achievements, and experiences they leave behind can continue influencing humanity long afterward. The Umayyad Caliphate became one of the most influential chapters in the 1,400-year history of Islamic civilization, not because its rulers were perfect, but because their era contained extraordinary achievements alongside challenges. Its history invites us to study success without arrogance, failure without despair, and leadership with a sense of responsibility. When we look back at this remarkable period, we discover a message that remains relevant. Circumstances may change, powerful institutions may disappear, and difficult moments may seem overwhelming, but determined people can continue building, learning, and moving forward. The Umayyad story ultimately reminds us that history is not a record of what happened. It is a mirror that encourages future generations to understand the consequences of their choices and to seek wisdom from both triumph and hardship. If you're benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.